Welcome again. Here we are at week 6 of HSV 120. It seems like the semester's just begun and it is now about ready to end. So I'm going to do a very brief overview of chapter 12. Again, just like with last week's chapter, when we start talking about gender, sexual, and sexual orientation differences, we do have to be careful not to get too much into sort of stereotyping people. But there certainly are some issues, particularly with women in treatment. There can be some particular problems. Number one is that when you look back at the history of AA and the history of addiction treatment, it was really unusual for women to be at all involved or represented uh, because women were judged differently if they had a problem like that. Women were held to a degree to a higher standard than men were. Uh, then, because fewer women were presenting for treatment and presenting for help in 12 step groups, uh, there was a tendency to be in very small minorities and groups. And there was a tendency, and can still be a tendency, for women at various types of self help groups to feel preyed upon. Uh, there's something that uh, men sometimes seem to have difficulty understanding that the woman is there for help and not to increase her dating pool. Uh, so that can be difficult. There are other issues involved as well. A lot of times, if a man goes into long term treatment, it is assumed that the woman will stay home and take care of the children and handle everything while the man's in treatment. If a woman goes into treatment, not necessarily thought that the man will stay home and take care of the children. Uh, and of course, you also have a lot of single parents. And while not always, quite often, uh, a woman will be a single custodial parent. And there are childcare issues involved with treatment, not only for long term treatment, but even for things like intensive outpatient. So childcare becomes an issue and becomes a problem. So there can be other issues that come into play. So, reading the chapter, keeping in mind that there are very particular issues that women deal with in treatment, which is one reason why you will find specialized treatment programs for women. There's a reason that AA, NA, and other groups like that will offer women's meetings. Sometimes there are issues that women need to deal with that they may not be comfortable talking about in a mixed group. So these are things to keep in mind. Uh, Also, a woman's experience in addiction and recovery could be very different from a man. So that's things that we want to keep in mind. The other uh, I'll, I'll share, and my sister had uh, given me permission to share her story before she passed. Um, when my sister got into treatment for the very first time for her alcoholism, she was very lucky and she got into a program in Maryland that was a long term residential program. Uh, I think it could last anywhere from 6 to 12 months. Somehow she was actually able to be there, I think almost 18 months. And it was a wonderful program because her daughter could be there with her in the program. They signed the kids up with the local school system. The school bus would come by the facility and take them to school. Uh, and so it was very, very helpful to my sister. And she was able to get a very good start on her recovery that way. Uh, so the problem was, and it leads into the other part of our chapter that talks about sexual orientation differences. My sister was gay, and being in a women's residential program, she did not feel comfortable revealing her sexual orientation. So, for the whole time she was in treatment, there was a part of her that she couldn't be honest about. And of course, if you're holding anything back, if you're not being honest about yourself in treatment, treatment does not work as well. We are right now in a period where uh, LGBTQ issues have become much more open. There is greater acceptance than there had been. Obviously, gay marriage is now legal, but there are still people who will judge, people who will ostracize, people who will demonize folks. So a lot of times, even now, people may not be comfortable being out in a group of people, not knowing how their discussion of their sexual orientation will be accepted or not accepted. Uh, so that leads to a need also for specialized treatment, for specialized groups. And again, there are a lot of uh, self-help groups that offer meetings specifically for LGBTQ folks. There are some good residential programs that are designed for the LGBTQ community. So, pardon me. These are all issues that need to be taken into account. So read the chapter and keep in mind that these are things that we in the treatment community need to look at. Uh, what I did for my practice, on my front door, I had a little sticker that I got from the Pride Institute in Minnesota that showed a rainbow and said ally. And that little sticker on the door, the person came in, let them know that they could be open about their sexuality without judgment. So, those are important things because people already feel judged because of their addictive disorder, their substance use disorder. And to add in any kind of judgment according, around their sexuality is even more difficult. So that's an overview of Chapter 12. Uh, I want to say that the papers that I've looked at so far have been excellent. If you did not get your paper in time for the deadline, uh, and you do want to submit it to be graded, send it to me by email, gblanchard at hcc.edu, um, and I will see that graded. Uh, I'm going to put up a discussion question for the week. It'll be our last discussion question because next week is final exam week. There's one last chapter to look at, uh, and then there will be the final exam. I will probably open that exam up later this week. I do have in the week 7 uh, Boodle frame a study guide for the exam that should help you to pinpoint what the questions will be about. The final exam will be a multiple choice true false test. You will have 3 opportunities to take the test, with the highest grade being posted. Uh, so be sure to start looking at that. Do the discussion question for the week. And again, if you have not gotten your paper in time, and I realize that perhaps having the deadline at the end of the day on a holiday maybe wasn't the wisest, although I like to think I gave plenty of opportunity to turn it in ahead. But if you haven't gotten to get it to me, and we'll see you next week, and we'll have our wrap up. And I wish you all the best, and have a good week.